However, I don't think anything really in life is a setback. Yeah, it's a setback for a comeback. I don't regret the level of experience and wealth of knowledge I got from working from government.
Everything you think of it as a setback for a comeback.
Yes. There's this analogy that, for example, when you're an archer, you have to pull it back first, that arrow back.
Yes.
And sometimes it looks like that arrow is going back, but that arrow is going to fly. So the foundation of
It's gaining momentum. It's
Yes.
gaining power by going back.
For a lot of people, they think that when you've worked for government for 10 years is a setback. However, when I look at myself now and when I talk about issues, when I dissect issues, I'm not talking from ideas or theory. I'm talking from experience. So I'm very confident about what I'm talking about.
This is Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. We enthuse, we energize, we inspire, and we empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes in BW and beyond. Welcome to yet another episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. I'm as excited as ever to bring you another offering in terms of a great entrepreneur. I have with me Miss Juby Peacock. She's going to share her entrepreneurial story and, of course, her book. I'm very excited about that. But before we get into a conversation, a little bit of housekeeping. I have my book. It's available here, Momp Nuggets of Grit. You can get it from Exclusive Books. Retails only for $350, guys, and it's also available here from Mogobe Plaza. As well, if you're interested in any of our mentorship programs, be it entrepreneurship, be it real estate, feel free to reach out to us on 397-1368. Having said all that, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. We need you guys. We need your participation and we need your involvement to deal with these algorithms. So, Juby Peacock, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Mr. Mogobe. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for having me on the show.
Tell me about your background a little bit so that we can get the ball rolling.
Well, my name is Juby Peacock, Juby Peacock. That's my middle name. My claim to fame, as you know, was Miss Botswana 2004. Apart from that, I'm a social worker, and I have a master's degree in governance, development, and public policy. I currently work for the State Department, American Embassy, under Pepfar, the wing of Pepfar, and I'm in the developmental space. I'm also a social media enthusiast, an activist, an art activist, and I do a little bit of preaching. I call myself a Facebook pastor, where I teach young people the word of God in innovative ways.
Wow.
Yes.
Do you actually appear in pulpits and preach?
Sometimes I do.
Okay.
But I believe for the next generation, we have to innovate, even how we preach the gospel, not to water it down, but we need to be able to feed the next generation the gospel in a way that they can understand it.
Yeah.
Yes.
To be able to amplify it as well.
Yes.
Now, tell me about your reign as Miss Botswana. That seems like a good place to start.
Yes.
How was it?
It was interesting. I had a controversial reign. However, it was an interesting space for self-discovery. I had a lot of opportunities to work in the HIV/AIDS space as a social worker. It was very empowering because my
What
peers...
year was this?
This was 2004. Yes. I also got to work with a lot of school-going children. I got to work on big campaigns like Show You Care with Ambassador Huggins, Lusuka Siboni. As a woman, going on those campaigns and encouraging men to circumcise and check that HIV status. It was very empowering at the time.
I remember that Ambassador Huggins was a very vocal and very prominent ambassador at the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I believe Botswana were very excited to see an African-American ambassador.
Yeah.
He was very involved, very hands-on.
Yeah, we were sad to see him go.
Yes.
Are you still in touch?
Yes, I am.
What's he doing?
On LinkedIn. He's running his businesses, but he still supports a lot of Botswana. I believe his time in Botswana really impacted his life because he does a lot of work with Botswana still. So he reaches out a lot.
All right.
Yes.
Now, there's a book which you have birthed here called The Chronicles of a Peacock.
Yes.
It's a play on your surname, Peacock.
Yes.
Yeah. What inspired the book and what is it about?
The book is inspired by me turning 40 this year and realizing that I'm entering into a stage in my life where I need to start thinking about my legacy. And I realized I haven't really packaged my legacy as intangible forms, like what can I leave for the next generation? So this was a breakthrough into saying, within my other projects that will come, let me take out this book, which is a poetry anthology, but very autobiographical. It talks a lot about my life, my experiences, my lived experiences about different subjects, and my passions and the things that I want to really campaign against, yes, or sensitize people about. So
why do you say it's autobiographical?
It's about my life. And even in the book, there's a pictorial journal there that shows me just from childhood to being a model, to being Miss Botswana, to being in different platforms. So it does reflect different segments of who I am.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's a lot, really, in terms. It's a total of 50 poems?
Yes.
Okay. Why the number 50? I thought it would be 40 since you're turning 40.
Not necessarily. I wasn't really thinking about the number. It's just that different segments that dissect different parts about my life. There's worship and spiritual warfare in there. There's identity in there. There's Pan-Africanism in there. So, and then the poems about specific individuals who have impacted my life. Okay. So they ended up falling to 50, and it's an even number. And I said, let's go with
stick
50.
with it. Yeah,
Yes.
And you talk about it being an element of preaching being in there. Yes. Touch on that a little bit.
So the first segment talks about praise and worship and spiritual warfare. And in that segment, there are actually 3 poems in there for God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I believe that at different points in my life, I got to really get a revelation about the Godhead, be it Jehovah, Sabaoth, be it Jesus himself, be it the Holy Spirit. So there are 3 poems dedicated to the Godhead. And then there are 3 poems that will bring you closer to God. Of like poems like Perfect, that show us that God is not unapologetic. He's not apologetic about how he made us. Even if you have a disability, God does not apologize to Moses when Moses says, I'm a stutterer. Yeah, he just tells him that he made those things deliberately. So the first chapter really gives us a revelation of who God is and who we are and how we are expected to worship God. The first poem in the anthology is called Sunflower. And it's a revelation that God gave me because at the time, my different friends were, talking about who God says they are in terms of flowers. And some of them were saying they're like the jasmine or they're like the dandelion. And I was sitting in a sofa and I just said, God, who like, what kind of flower am I? And I was actually I wasn't serious. And God showed me this open vision of a field full of sunflowers. And
is it a vision or a dream?
A vision is sort of like a daydream where you see something, but you're wide awake. So he showed me a field of sunflowers, and the sun appeared, and the sunflowers turned around to face the sun. So it's a revelation of who we are in terms of worship. It's not only about songs, it's about facing the maker, facing your maker, and reflecting him and doing what he says you need to do.
And then in terms of this poem, are you able to share with us a little bit, 1 or 2 lines from it?
From Sunflower. Yes.
To give us an idea of the point you are making, yeah.
Should I share the beginning or the middle?
It's up to you, madam.
Okay. Sunflower. Your metaphor evokes nostalgia for a quintessential worship lifestyle. A flower aspiring to always face the direction of the sun. An awe-inspiring gift. Your purpose is not hidden in obscurity, like a bride unbridled by the explosive emotions of the wedding night. Sunflower, let your face be awakened to the beauty of the sun. Draw strength from the rays that are dispersed by the bridegroom. Draw strength and respond, sunflower, to your intuitive impulse. In his image you were formed, a giant amongst flowers. The disc at your core holds the seeds of life, endowed with beautiful petals like the shimmering resilience of the human spirit, thriving despite the heat of the sun, saying, and I quote, Though he slay me, I will hope in him. Job 13:15.
Though he slay me. All right. This is good. I think this is a good point now to understand your history and your journey to get to this point. Can you please just walk us through that? What interesting events occurred to your life to even think in terms of Job being slayed, and slaying as a symbol of the need to turn to face God?
Well, if you are a believer in God, you realize that there's a hard road that you need to walk. The Bible talks about enter through the narrow way. It's a very difficult path to walk. We're living in a generation where when we think about worship or being a Christian, we're thinking only about prosperity. And there is nothing wrong about prosperity. But we know that God is calling us higher. You know, he says he made us in his image. And he expects that image to manifest in us. He expects us to manifest in entrepreneurship. When we dissect the story of the parable of the talents, and where the maker gives the 3 servants the talents, he expects them to multiply. So that can translate into ministry, it can translate into entrepreneurship, it can translate into any business or literally talent or gift you have. He expects us to multiply, and he expects us to occupy. He says, occupy until I come. So he doesn't expect us to downplay ourselves or play with our talents and act like we're humble. He expects us to occupy and take up space.
Wow. Step up.
Yes.
And show up.
Yeah.
All right. You've also been an MC, a speaker, and a performer. You're involved in philanthropy. Can you share a little bit of that part of your journey?
Well, I am an MC, and I believe that an MC can either break or make an event. So we get called to direct events, and I really believe in scripting shows when I MC. I want to sit down with the people who are making that event and say, exactly what are you doing? Let's script this thing. Because I feel it can be very sensitive, because you are taking on either somebody's brand or somebody's company, and you need to know their principles. You need to really know the idea that they have for the event. I'm a speaker. I get called to speak on different subjects. Mainly just encouragement, especially for women and children. So I work a lot with children and youth. Because I really believe in raising the next generation. We need voices for the next generation who can speak and activate the next generation. Because I believe a lot of social ills that we are seeing right now could be the fact that there is a gap.
There's a gap.
Between what happened, like what you call it? Intergenerational, passing the baton from the last generation to the next generation. So there was a disconnect. And we see that disconnect are taking part in terms of the lack of fatherhood, even the lack of motherhood. So we need voices to step into this void and fill it. Yes.
Wow, that's very interesting. So the MC thing is part-time?
Part-time, because I have a full-time job.
Okay.
Yes.
And then speaking, what do you speak on, and how often do you speak?
It depends on the subject. When people listen to you, they get different aspects of who you are. Sometimes they want me to come and talk about societal pressures and the things that are happening.
Peer pressure?
Peer pressure. No, societal pressures in terms of GBV, the violence that is happening, or just encouraging women. Yes, so it can just depend on what it is. Yes.
And you call yourself your performer. What do you perform?
I'm a spoken word poet. So these poems...
you have to actually perform them.
Yes.
You don't just speak them.
Yes.
I'll ask you to talk a little bit about the celebration of nature and nurture and then
Yes.
touch on some of these poems around that subject.
Yes. So I am from Maung,
Yes.
in the Okavango area, and because this book is about my life, I want to take people into my natural environment. And this is the Okavango, the Tamalakani, and there's a funny poem in there called Malaria, and I fall in love with a mosquito in it. Yes. So
It's a very vivid imagination.
yes. So the poem Okavango, behold, creation speaks with serene whispers of nature, echoes of Eden, untamed and alive, waters never steady, bubbling through in full-bodied motion, babblings of laughter refreshed by spring green waters, awakening the soul and letting out sweet sighs as we consider the beauty of the Okavango Delta. So it's a poem about the Okavango
It's
Delta.
interesting to me, you were not even reading, you're just speaking it from the heart.
Yes.
So a lot of these poems, it seems you've internalized them.
Yes, no, definitely. I really wanted to open up myself and say to Botswana, this is who I am. Say to the world, this is who I am. So I have interacted with the Delta from my childhood, the Tamalakani.
Yeah.
So these are things that I have really wanted to express and capture for a long
So
time.
the Delta is obviously an aspect of nature,
Yes.
but it says nature and nature.
Yes.
How do you tie that up? Can you break it down for us?
I believe that I am most creative when I'm around my natural environment. I have a family which has a history of interacting with nature. I have a grandfather who actually, Jack Friend Ramsden, if you read the book, The Seventh Moon, he advocates...
Seventh moon.
Yes, he advocates for the Delta area to be fenced in a Kotla meeting in Maung. And I have family members who are very invested in the nature business, in the safari business. So I believe that even as a creative, it comes out very clear. When I'm writing about nature, it's like my sixth sense. I know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So nature, human beings are supposed to interact with nature. And part of our health is we are meant to live in our natural environment. And we find ourselves in these cities and these fancy places. However, I believe we must always retreat and go to nature.
Yeah.
And for me, I think it works very well.
And I read somewhere that you need to occasionally earth yourself.
Yes.
By that, they meant take off your shoes and walk on the ground.
Yes.
They say that's a powerful, empowering thing.
Yes, I know people who, when they even come into a new land, they can even go on their knees and kiss the land.
Yeah.
Because the land has to accept you. Yes.
Now, you're active on social media. What exactly are you doing there?
I am educating about different subjects. Like I said, I'm a social worker, so I will weigh in on subject that I feel I'm qualified to speak on. I like social work. I like to speak particularly about on abuse on children, because I've worked as a government employee, as a clinical social worker for the Ministry of Health, so I know the gaps. So once in a while, I'll go in there and I will rant and I will say, this is what's happening in our culture. This is how children are not protected. I'll talk about GBV. I know the gaps. So I will create a ruckus on social media. I'm a person who is very bold.
You mean you generate controversy?
I generate controversy. I want people to talk. Yes, and I will put in my ideas in there and I'll say, this is what I'm thinking. So I also preach on social media. Around the time of COVID-19, I believe I heard the voice of God saying, you shall now preach the undiluted gospel. Because before then I was posting a lot of things on like scripture on social media. But around COVID, God said to me, now you will preach the undiluted gospel.
So then you decided going direct now.
Yes, now I there was a changing of blades where now I'll
Can
hit
you give an example of a post you did which was a little controversial, where you went direct?
On social media, about preaching or about...
Yeah, about that. I'm curious.
I preach a lot about what the Bible says as opposed to what we think it says. For example, in the issue of ancestral worship, that God boldly says that, I am God, I don't want ancestors. But that as Africans, for example, and Africans are not the only people who fall into this, even the Israelites themselves, they were struggling with worshipping ancestors, So I will go boldly and say, yeah, you guys want to me modimo ena a re ipatale nosi ke modimo ke le nosi ke ntse ke yo ke ntse. So people hate that. They will go mad. Oh, the religion of white people, this and that. So yes. So I will do that, and I'll take a punch, you know, from the public insulting me, even from some of the Christians themselves who think they're enlightened.
The preachers.
The Christians themselves.
Yeah.
Who think they're enlightened, and now they're mixing Christianity and they're mixing it with New Age religions and
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's very interesting. You came obviously from the world of pageantry.
Yes.
And then you develop and broaden yourself, social work, and then of course, becoming a performer of poetry.
Yes.
Throughout this journey, which part was the most, was the most exciting for you, and which part was your favorite, so to speak?
I believe each part is exciting in itself. God has this thing where 1 minute you are sitting on the mountaintop. You are Miss Botswana. And after Miss Botswana, I was an international model for a DBS site holder called Puchanik and a Scatterfine Jewelry.
Where?
Based in Belgium. So I was traveling the world. I was at Juby, but I'll get, they'll have to excuse me because I have to travel the world, go to the Americas, go to Europe, go to China, go to India for all the trade shows and attend all these big conferences. And then the next day, you're a social worker in a rural village. So he has this way where,
after your reign ended.
Yes. Because I figured, you know what? I trained as a social worker. I need to practice. This is part of my purpose. So there was a time now I had to write them and say, you know what? Thank you for this 3.5 year experience. I now need to go and practice.
For that long? Oh yeah. The pageantry part plus.
No. After the pageantry, I got a contract with Puchanik for 3.5 years. Yes. But then after that, I had to say, you know what? I need to go and practice as a social worker. And now I'm in the Bundus. Yes.
So from boardrooms to to literally the cattle post.
Yes. So each part is exciting. And one of the experiences when I went to practice in Maung, and I worked with an organization called Poeta Bango Spoken Word Poetry. That's when I unearthed the poetry in me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, in Maung, they used to have a place. Is it a museum or something?
Yes, in Kabe Museum.
Is it still happening?
It is still happening, and it's bigger and better now.
How does it work?
It's branded. There's a way they work with Poeta Vango, but the museum is the home of Poeta Vango, and it's also the home of there's another movement for fine artists as well. Yes, so it's a hub of different organizations coming together. Even the Okacom, even the University of Botswana in Maung does some activities there.
Is that where you cut your teeth, where you sharpened your
I
skills?
definitely sharpened my teeth at Poeta Vango because I didn't know that I was a poet before I got there. I was doing backup vocals for some of the poets, and at some point Lekgodile Sekgana Beng, who's the chairman, said, you know what, you're an artist, try writing poetry. So that's how I got introduced to poetry.
Is it fair to ask you which one is your favorite poem among these ones?
Poetry is like babies. How do you ask a mother which one is their favorite child? So, but one of my favorite poems is definitely the poem about my mother.
What's her name?
Elizabeth Peacock.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then one of my favorite poems is the poem Perfect. And it's one of my most simple poems. I wrote it when I first started writing poetry. However, I like how it builds the self-esteem and tells you as a human being that you are perfect just the way you are. Because God is very specific about his creation. And the Bible says when he created all of these things, he kept on saying it's good. But sometimes we look at other human beings and we don't think it's good. But he thinks it's awesome. He thinks these things are good.
Do you want to share the one about Elizabeth? The poem?
Oh yes, I can share, but I need to read that one. It's one of my newest poems.
Okay.
It was actually not even supposed to be in the book, but at some point I just found myself writing this poem.
Elizabeth.
So she's
still with us.
Yes. So it's under poems about specific individuals, and
of course she She loves it as well, I assume.
Oh, she loves it. The first time I sent it to her, and she just said, you know what, I'm crying. And my brothers, she said she was crying.
Yeah.
My brothers love it as well. They just said this is a poem about our mother. Okay. My mother's house stands strong like a fortress, a highway in the middle of the wilderness. It is a mystery, a place of both fortitude and solitude. Its walls are built with bricks baked in prayer. Its floors are finished with virgin white tiles. There's something much intimidating about the tomopani trees that hover on the rooftops, and a tangible spirit of comfort that hovers in its rooms. The thorns and the thistles cannot survive in my mother's house. My mother's house is a safe haven. My mother's house is a book with many pages, a very pretty textbook on the outside. It knows how to persuade you and not dictate to you, compelling you to come inside and flip its pages. It bids you to come close on a near day, on a hard day. It does not fear vulnerability. Its walls have ears, but fears are not welcome here. My mother's house is a picture of her heart, a temple of the Holy Ghost. Her most treasured possessions are her children. She is an unconquerable soul. She has weathered many storms, yet her eyes glimmer with love. Her laughter fills the room with grace, and her perfume is a tangible and unforgettable memory.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually like the last two paragraphs.
Go ahead.
Yeah. My mother's house stands on a firm foundation, for there is a fear of God that keeps her feet rooted deep in the ground. And the rains descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and burst against that house, yet it did not fall, for it had been founded on a rock. Matthew 7:25. Behold, I am standing on the shoulders of a giant. Therefore I cannot fail. For the matriarch is a large elephant, and I am here to finish the relay that she started. I am standing on a sure foundation. Yes.
Of course, on the shoulders of giants. That's a nice, I like that one. Yes. Yeah. And she cried when you read that one for her.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Where does one find the book?
So the book is at Bala Books at Real Park Mall.
Yeah.
And the book is also at Exclusive Books.
Okay.
However, very soon it will be in South Africa and Namibia and Zimbabwe.
And it retails for?
Retails for 350 pula. Yes.
Okay. Same cost as my book. That seems reasonable enough.
I believe so.
How long did it take to put it all together?
2 years.
Okay.
It took 2 years. I had scribbled most of the poems. However, there were 7 poems that were not in the book that I believe I needed to write to be in the book. The poem Tamalakani, there's a poem there called The Rose, the 2 poems about Jesus and the Holy Spirit. So the thing that took so long was I needed to write these poems to be in the book.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know whether you've tried some of your poems with some of the gurus like Barolong Seboni to share some of your ideas and read them to them.
Yes. Barolong has attended. There is a poetry show at Travel Lodge called Poetry Nights. Travel Lodge Poetry Nights every Thursday, last Thursday of every month. So he has heard my poetry there. Morodi Moroka was in the panel that was judging the most recent literature awards, where this book won the best English poetry literature award.
Tell us about that. Time to blow your trumpet.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
That was such an exciting moment. So it was a very exciting moment. I joined the competition last year, October. You take 3 of your books there. But the most interesting thing about that particular competition is they don't tell you, hey, win. You know, what's going to happen. So it's just so nerve-wracking. So you sit there in the crowd and you don't know if you've made it or not. So for me, it was such a nerve-wracking.
And then your name was called.
Oh, yes. Yes, my name was called.
You're competing against others.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So they long list you and they short list you, and then the 5 who have made it.
So you won best what?
Best English poetry book. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think also the way it was put together.
Oh yes.
This is very impressive.
I'm glad.
Very, very impressive. Now, I always want to ask people who are making an impact in society,
Yes.
to tell us about their setbacks and their challenges, and to share with us how they overcame those setbacks and challenges. What would you say in that regard?
The setbacks and the challenges, if you're a God-fearing woman, if you're an honest woman, it can be difficult sometimes when you want to succeed at your own merit. So the setbacks is you have to compete sometimes with people who are cutting corners. So
In
it
what
takes
sense?
in terms of favors, and sometimes it's nothing sinister. It's just sometimes I'm from Maung and my family is in Maung, but there are people who are in the city, and it's easier for them because they have family who are occupying spaces already. So the setbacks is you have to really push through for your foundations and push through and to accelerate to reach your peers who might have had a head start because of certain platforms and certain support systems and stuff like that. But I can't really complain.
I mean,
for
is there a
that.
particular thing that set you back, or where you say, "Look, this is a challenge that is really catastrophic. It's pushing me back." That's what I'm asking about.
I believe part of it was also the mindset when you have been sponsored by government and then you feel like, you know what, I owe government, I need to go work for government first.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of honesty. However, I don't think anything really in life is a setback. Yeah, it's a setback for a comeback. I don't regret the level of experience and wealth of knowledge I got from working from government.
Everything you think of it as a setback for a comeback.
Yes. There's this analogy that, for example, when you're an archer, you have to pull it back first, that arrow back.
Yes.
And sometimes it looks like that arrow is going back, but that arrow is going to fly. So the foundation of
It's
me...
gaining momentum. It's
Yes.
gaining power by going back.
For a lot of people, they think that when you've worked for government for 10 years is a setback. However, when I look at myself now and I look at, when I talk about issues, when I dissect issues, I'm not talking from ideas or theory. I'm talking from experience. So I'm very confident about what I'm talking about. So
In terms of systems of government.
in terms of systems of government, where we are failing, where we need to improve, I'm not theorizing, and that's what gives me that confidence, and I think it gives me a real voice. So I believe that's very important.
Okay, and then of course triumphs.
Yes.
What would you say was your greatest hour? Or one of your greatest successes?
I think when they put that crown on my head, Miss Botswana has a very big platform.
Yeah, 2004.
It's a very, very big platform, and it builds you as a young woman. So you have that confidence, and you I have a poem in the book called Peacock Arise. So I think for me I don't need to read it though,
Oh,
but
okay.
but it sums up the level of confidence that you you build from such platforms, because Peacock Arise is just basically talking about you don't need to fall for the comparison trap. You don't need to fall for being a copycat. You are built in such a way that your splendor, everything about you is magnificent. So Miss Botswana set me up for that. Set me up for being very confident. Yes.
Is there a particular thing that you did to make you win, or that distinguished you from the rest?
I had a strategy. I had this diary where I wrote my strategy. This is how I'm going to win. From how I'm going to tackle the answers, I'm going to know my current affairs. I actually had notebooks where I would cut out current affairs, my vocabulary. This is, because, I studied like how can I, when I'm asked a question, general knowledge, how can I be, precise? It's all about precision and being precise in what you're saying. So I had a strategy. I paid for modeling school with my allowance at University of Botswana. I was going to pro models. So I had a strategy about what I'm doing. Yes.
So what advice would you give young would-be pageant winners, young would-be Miss Botswanas these days?
Just go for it. Just go for it.
But have a strategy.
Have a strategy, and it shouldn't be an end. It should be a means to an end. Because I think sometimes young girls get trapped in that world. and they think it's all about beauty, and they're so stuck on beauty. They can't do anything else apart from beauty. So I think from
It's much more than beauty.
it's much more than beauty, and there are other aspects of your life that you need to embrace. That's why, as a model, I was able to say, okay, I've done this thing for 3.5 years. Now I'm going to go and practice as a social worker. Now I'm going to do poetry. Now I'm going to work in the developmental space. So allow yourself to evolve as time goes. Yes, don't just get stuck in the beauty industry and not, open up your wings, fly, do other things. Yes.
I saw somewhere that Naomi Campbell is starting a podcast. So it's your
She has
point
done a
about
lot of things.
broadening your, not just stuck on the one lane only.
She has done a lot of things. Human beings are like a diamond. You have different facets. So I don't see why people just want to define themselves as one thing.
So who's your hero or your shiro?
My mom as well,
Yeah, it's clear that it's your mom.
Yeah, it's not a cliche. I wrote a poem about her.
Yeah, beyond that.
Beyond that, I'd say Maya Angelou. She wrote a lot of good poetry, but she understood life. One of the most inspiring things about Maya is when I read that at, I think, 85 or 83, somewhere there, she went and pursued a Master of Divinity. And I think for me, it's that school of thought that you are never too old to learn.
Yeah.
We have to pursue
And
knowledge.
she did get it.
Yes, she got it.
Yeah.
We have to pursue knowledge.
She got a PhD as well. Oh, they were honorary. I don't know.
Yes, she got a lot of honoraries.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I'm a person who likes to pursue knowledge and to influence my generation. She's definitely
one of my favorite sayings from her is when she says, if people show you who they are, believe them.
Believe them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't keep saying, oh, maybe I'm not seeing right. And believe what people show you.
Yes.
Yeah. It's one of her famous.
Definitely.
But do you have a famous poem or saying from her that you admire?
There's a poem, I don't know how to recite it, but there's a poem that talks about wearing a mask. Yes, and it talks about she's on a bus and this is this lady, and every time you ask her something, she cries. No, she laughs, sorry. She laughs, but it's because she's shielding a lot of pain. So she wears a mask, and then she talks about how many of us are going around, we're wearing masks.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a very humbling poem.
Is it based on the idea of why the caged bird sings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why the caged? I think that's a poem or it's a book.
That's a book.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a powerful book. But just the
Yes.
title,
Oh yes.
why the caged bird
Yes.
sings.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let's talk more about your plans and aspirations, not just for the book,
Yes.
but beyond that.
I was not going to publish this book first. So I'm writing 2 books. One is called Return to Eden. I write a lot about Eden and what was God's initial idea for human beings and how redemption is taking us back to the garden. I'm also compiling a compendium of my Facebook posts. Like I said, I'm a Facebook pastor.
Yeah.
So I was thinking of releasing the compendium first, and God said, no, leave that. Release this book. And at the time, I hadn't written many of the poems. I think I was at 40.
Release this book.
Yeah, I was only at 40, and there were these 7 poems that I had been wanting to write for like 2 years, and I was stuck. Like I had a writer's block.
Yeah.
But he said, this is the book you'll break through with.
Yeah.
Yes. So I had to put those projects aside and now focus on this book.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, you say you have 2 more books?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first one is going to be?
Return to Eden. Yes.
And it's coming out when?
Probably by the end of this year. I will release the compendium first. I'm working on the compendium called Sunflower.
Yeah.
It's based on that poem that I read about the sunflower.
Should be fascinating.
Yes.
Should be very, very interesting.
Yes.
Do you think in Botswana somebody can just do nothing else but write? Or you have to augment your income with other things?
Yes and no. Part of innovation is finding where you can place yourself in the marketing strategies. What is writing really? If I'm at my work and I'm writing memos, decision memos, it takes a lot of writing, energy, and So placing yourself in the creative spaces, in industries that need writers, that need scripts for radio, for television. You can be a writer. that you need to supplement it, yes. The industry is not at the level where it is internationally.
Yeah.
However, we live in a global village. Now you can get the opportunity to write on those platforms as well. Yes.
And one of the things you and I need to talk about is general entrepreneurship management.
Yes.
And this being an entrepreneurial show, perhaps you can develop the point further.
One of the things that I'm passionate about, and as a member of Poeta Bango, one of the things we used to do at our festival is we would have a workshop where we teach artists to be entrepreneurs. There are a lot of artists in Botswana who, unfortunately, because they didn't have this knowledge, were not able to package their work well. They were not able to trade with their work. They're not able to get the copyrights of their work. So we empowered artists about how to do that. And as an artist, you need to know the basic marketing skills, management skills, how you manage yourself as a product, how you brand yourself, how you respect yourself because of that, and you're selling your brand. So there's a lot of money that artists can make in the entrepreneurial space. Like I said, you need to innovate and see how you interact with different industries so that you can sell your art.
So how do you train them actually? You bring them to class and take them?
You workshop them and you give them a chance to go and experience and experiment and go and do it.
Is it something you're doing or intending to do?
I do.
Okay.
I do that a lot. I go to different companies, tell them this is what I do. You have an event, I'm an MC. I get called to MC for different events. So yes.
Okay, and are there any mentee or graduates that you are proud of who've gone through your hands?
Yes.
Maybe even without mentioning names, you can.
I have actually mentored a lot of Miss Botswanas and even some Miss Universe Botswanas. If you are in the pageant and you didn't win, I'll go to you and say, you know what? I think you can win.
Yeah.
I think you can win. So I have an eye for that, and I have an eye for talent.
Some have won that you've trained?
Yes.
Like who?
Tirolo Ramasedi for Miss Universe Botswana is one of the ones who I went and said, I think you can win this thing.
Yeah.
And then she went back and won.
She won.
Yes.
Okay.
So
and the challenging part also is translating the success from Miss Botswana internationally.
Yes.
Because some people lose their confidence when they get that to that big stage. How was it for you?
A lot of international pageants are still struggling with what we call Elizabethan beauty, which is the beauty of a white woman.
Yeah.
So there's a struggle there. Once in a while, they'll try to let a black girl win. However, it's a real struggle. Sometimes you can just see that.
Because they've been brainwashed to believe that beauty is being. And
sometimes it can really crush the young ladies when they go there, because as they can put 100% and still not be able to come up with much. So, but it's still worth the experience, being in a pageant with 108 girls and having those girls being a part of your life.
Did you go internationally yourself?
I went to China. I went to Hainan, China.
Okay, and how far did you?
I went into the top 10 for the talent show and the modeling competition. Yes, but I didn't go into the top 5.
Okay.
Yes.
And Warriors was to come some years later to get as far as number 2.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You still haven't made number 1, eh?
Yeah, Lesotho was very close. In my thoughts, I think Lesotho won that pageant. Yeah, it's not always about getting the crowd, but everybody saw that this woman did the things. She deserved this crown.
Well, she's now a minister of youth, so maybe it helped her in other ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Talk a little bit about the clothing and the publishing side, which is something you're working on as well.
So I have a clothing brand called Modesty. A lot of outfits that I wear are from that brand, and I've designed for some individuals as well. So Modesty is a brand for women to be beautiful but modest, as an answer to a world that only defines the woman as beautiful when she's stripped naked.
Yeah.
So yes, the concept behind that. There are different lines under it which I'll be launching this year. So there is that brand, and then I'll be launching a publishing firm as well.
You shy away from things that are tight. Things that are transparent.
Oh, yes.
You want to,
But I make you look absolutely beautiful. So if you go into my Instagram, you'll see a lot of outfits there. And people are always asking me, where do you get these outfits? Those are my designs.
Yes.
Yes.
And how are you monetizing and, commercializing that?
That's why I'll be launching this year, because I think initially I was experimenting. So it's registered as a brand. However, you need to test the market and test the price
So
range.
are you a designer? Are you a fabric designer or?
I am a designer, so I design, but I also have a lot of idea about exactly what I want to do, and then I partner with tailors who actually now tailor the work.
Okay.
Yes, but the designs are my own.
Okay, so where are we going to find these clothes?
It hasn't launched, so it's a baby.
Okay.
It's a baby.
But you'll let us know at the right time.
Yes, definitely.
What about publishing? You started, of course, with this book. Is it self-published?
So this is a self-published book, but I published with the publishers in South Africa called Faithland Publishers. However, this is not a traditional publishing agreement. I do the actual selling and the marketing of the book, but they published and they edited the book.
Yeah.
Yes. So I will be going into the space of helping authors publish locally as well. I'll be doing another project with them, which is turning this into an audio book.
Okay.
However, then I'll be going into now opening my own publishing firm.
That sounds very interesting. It's like your work is cut out for you. You're going to be very, very busy.
Yes.
Let me also talk about media, other media, in terms of television, in terms of radio. Are you planning to get into those spaces as well? Maybe to market the book and...
I have been to BTV last week to talk about the book. However, I found myself in a conversation about gender-based violence instead.
How did that happen?
I think the nation is responding to the large statistics of gender-based violence over the holidays. Yes. So I did introduce the book then. I will introduce the book on RB1 next week, Monday.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Is there anything you want to add, especially on the long-term plan? If we're talking 2 decades, a decade from now, if you had a crystal ball, what do you see happening to brand Juby Peacock or to any of our companies? Do you have like a long-term vision in that sense?
Yes, I do. I definitely see myself in a more influential place in the literary arts. I believe that Botswana is a very young country and we need to capture our literature. And that's why I want to open a publishing firm, because I want to help Botswana to publish and to train them to publish, and the importance of that. I also see myself, most of my brands is about the arts. I translate into a lot of art in my brand. So you'll be seeing a lot of launches of either clothes or different things. But I also see a lot of gospel theology going into this brand, because ultimately I am a preacher. So I don't want to be ashamed of that. I want to lead with that. I don't want to apologize for who I am, because I am called as that first. So
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You belong to a particular denomination, or you're going to start your own?
No. I'm a Pentecostal. I belong to a church called Center for Change Church. It's in Mgoditshane, right here in Gaborone.
Okay.
Yes.
So you'll be under them?
I am under Pastor Catherine and Robert Dagi. Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's very good. So everything else is subservient to that?
Oh, everything rises and falls on that, on worship.
Okay.
Yes.
I appreciate that. That. Now, this is the time of the show when you get to hit me with a question, if you have one.
Oh, yes. I haven't read the book From Cattle Post to Entrepreneurship.
Nuggets of Grit,
Yes, I hope to get it tomorrow. What is the takeaway from this book? Yes.
Is that your question?
Yes.
No, the takeaway is just to say, look, here's someone who grew up in an environment to which we're all familiar, in a cattle post, and they were able to do what the Setswana saying says. The Setswana saying, so that's really the biggest takeaway. He's still a work in progress. He's still a sinner. He's imperfect. but
Yes.
he's there's a little bit of traction.
Yes.
Of course, it's from some people's point of view, is close to nothing, but to others, it's a little bit of a drop in the ocean in terms of success. And I mentioned the importance of grit because some of our people are too quick to give up on challenges. I believe that I don't thrive on challenges, but I'm not petrified by them. And I believe that challenges are coming non-stop. So that would be the biggest takeaway. But I don't want to go beyond that. I might spoil the book.
Do you
for
believe
you.
there's something prophetic about your name, Mogobe?
Mompoloki, which means my savior.
Yes.
That's where a lot of prophecy is contained, because as you say my name, you say I'm saving you.
Oh.
And I brought in it to say I'm also saving you. So
Okay.
as an entrepreneur, as a mentor,
Yes.
I'm involved in the business of saving and serving.
Businesses, like rescuing businesses.
Yeah, serving
Ah.
and serving. You see? Saving and serving. That's what I'm trying to say.
I was thinking more in terms of Mogobe. I thought you were where people
That's
get
one
to
aspect.
drink.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's one aspect. So the also name of the restaurant is the Pond. Name of the the real estate agency is Mo Pond.
Yes.
So Mogobe is a place where you come to drink.
Yes.
So
yes.
it is prophetic. That's why traditionally from Holloway, our names Botswana were prophetic.
Yes.
That's why with my children, all of them, I gave them
Yeah.
names Botswana, which have something to say.
Yeah, my name Khomotso is prophetic. Yes,
Yeah.
Because I was born after a lot of people in my family had died.
Yeah.
So I was born as this child who comes.
You see?
Khomotso.
And because you are preaching to us,
Yes.
you are giving us poetry.
Yes.
So it's prophetic. Kana Setswana sare ina lebese romo, which means if you give your child a bad name, you are
Yes.
sending them a bad omen or
Bad
something.
omen,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's what it means.
Thank you.
Do you see that screen there, ma? No, this one. This
Oh, yes, I see. Oh, this one. Oh,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I would like you to look at that camera and say a few empowering words to leave the viewer with as we wrap up. But maybe you still want to read one last poem. Maybe
Which
there's
one?
just
Which one will it
Pick
be?
just one poem and read one last
Read
poem.
one last poem and then.
and then say something to the viewer after you've done that.
Ah, okay. Let me see. Okay, this poem is called The Rose and is dedicated to two of my friends, Melody Banda and Alice Willio, from that character. You smell like a rose, bleed in crimson, easy on the eye but rough on the edges, not beaten by the weather, because you have the arms of steel, and you will not wither at the weight of adversity. Your reputation precedes you, madame, and rightfully so. They have called you many names, dealt you many blows. You have climbed the steepest mountains, for surely you are a rose, and they will not steal your thunder. Daughter, you derive your identity from Abba. You are the Bodasiya, the queen of war. In every uprising against you, God will give you the victory. You carry an atmospheric presence so tangible, heaven opens up at your sacred elegance. Your dialect of tongues is the purest specimen of colloquial Zion. You are a woman for many seasons, a classical tune, a melody to facilitate the affairs of heaven on earth, a Gregorian chanter. Your song is like a sound of many waters. Yes, you are a rose, a tall glass of water, and a tall order from above. So that poem is called The Rose, dedicated to two of my friends. I encourage you to get this book. This is a book of self-discovery. This is a book of empowerment. It's a book that will encourage you to also think about your legacy if you have reached 40 years like myself and what you're leaving on the earth. Because I believe there's an impartation when somebody bears their soul and shares their talent at this level. They're saying, come up higher and, do it for yourself. Do the things that God has been placing in your mind as ideas and bring out that wealth into the forefront. So I encourage you to buy the Chronicles of a Peacock and enjoy it and meditate on it, and may it change your life, because it changes my life every day when I read it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that your final message?
Yes.
All right. It's important that they should be able to get the book, tell them where to get it, and then also to reach out to you. How do they reach you? Do you have contacts?
Yes. So the book is currently at Bala Books in Botswana, and it's also at Exclusive Books, and it'll be selling on different chain stores in South Africa and also different individual independent bookstores in Namibia. So you can reach me through Facebook. I actually do respond to Facebook messages. I'm one of the people who still does that. And my numbers are 714222165 or 76550146.
Yes. By the way, how did you manage to come up with such an angelic cover?
So my brother designed that. It wasn't the initial idea, but my brother decided to make his own cover. My brother Adrian Peacock, he's a graphic designer.
Wow.
So that's how he imagined it.
It speaks volumes.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your coming to the studio.
Thank you.
And sharing your story.
Thank you so much.